A single blueberry bush can feed your family for over 50 years. One thornless blackberry plant can crank out 30 pounds of fruit every single summer. And the mulberry tree you plant this weekend? It could still be producing berries when your great-grandchildren are walking around this planet. But here is what trips people up. Not all berry plants are created equal. Some take 5 years before you see a single fruit. Others spread so aggressively you will spend the rest of your life fighting them. And a couple of these are literally illegal to grow in certain states. So today we are breaking down 12 perennial berry plants that you plant once and harvest for years, decades, or in some cases, centuries. Every zone range, yield number, and timeline in this video comes from University Extension research. No guesswork, no inflated marketing claims, and I saved the 3 best picks for the middle of this list, so stick around for those. Let's get into it. Number 12. Strawberries. Starting with the most familiar berry on the planet, and honestly, the one with the biggest catch that nobody talks about. Strawberries are perennial, yes, but a strawberry bed only lasts about 3 to 5 years before disease pressure forces you to rip everything out and start over somewhere else. That said, they are the fastest berry to produce. Day-neutral varieties like Albion and Seascape will give you fruit in their very first year. June-bearing types like Early Glow and Honeyberries produce one massive concentrated harvest over about 3 weeks in early summer, and they are the heavy hitters for freezing and preserving. Strawberries grow in zones 3 through 10 with the right variety, and you can expect around 3/4 pound to 1.5 pounds per plant each season. That might not sound like much per plant, but here is where strawberries get wild. A single June-bearing mother plant can send out runners and produce up to 120 daughter plants in one season. So you start with 10 plants in April, and by September, your entire raised bed is packed. The renovation secret for June-bearing beds is the single most important maintenance task that separates thriving patches from declining ones. Right after harvest ends, you mow all the foliage down, narrow the rows back to 12 inches, thin out the crowded plants, and hit them with fertilizer. Do this every year and your bed stays productive. Skip it, and by year 3, you are looking at a dense mat of tiny berries and fungal problems. Oh, and fun fact, strawberries are not actually berries. Botanically, the red part is the swollen flower receptacle. And those little things on the outside that look like seeds? Each one is technically its own individual fruit. Strawberries are the only fruit that wears its seeds on the outside. Number 11. Raspberries. Every raspberry cane you see only lives 2 years, then it dies. But the root system underneath is perennial, constantly sending up new canes for 10 to 15 years. You are not really growing individual plants with raspberries. You are managing a colony. You have 2 types to choose from. Summer-bearing varieties like Tulamine and Boyne fruit once in early summer on second-year wood and deliver the biggest single harvest. Ever-bearing types like Heritage and Caroline fruit on first-year canes from late summer through frost. And the lazy genius move is to just mow all the canes to the ground every fall and collect one big autumn crop. No pruning confusion, no guessing which canes to cut. Red raspberries grow in zones 3 through 8. Individual plants yield about 1 to 2 pounds each, but because they grow in dense hedgerows, Oregon State Extension data shows you can pull 18 to 27 pounds from a 10-foot row section. That is a lot of raspberries from a pretty small footprint. One quick heads up. Never plant raspberries where you have grown tomatoes, peppers, or potatoes in the last few years. They share a nasty soil disease called verticillium wilt, and it will wipe your patch out fast. And a fun one. Golden raspberries like the Ann variety look completely different, but they are genetically just red raspberries with a single broken pigment gene. Same plant, same flavor profile, different color. If you want my picks, go with Tulamine for the best tasting summer berry, Caroline for the best ever-bearing red, Joan J for a thornless ever-bearing option that crushed Oregon State trials at 2.2 pounds per row foot, and Jewel if you want a black raspberry that can handle cold winters. Number 10. Blackberries. If you want sheer volume per plant, blackberries absolutely dominate every other berry on this list. And I am not exaggerating. A single semi-erect thornless plant like Triple Crown or Chester can produce 25 to 35 pounds per year according to Oregon State Extension. Virginia Tech trials recorded Chester at nearly 32 pounds from one plant. The University of Arkansas breeding program has completely changed the game for thornless varieties. Ouachita, Navajo, and Arapaho are erect, thornless types that barely need a trellis and grow in zones 5 through 9. If you want maximum yield and do not mind putting up some wire, Triple Crown and Chester are the kings. And for warm climates in zones 7 through 9, trailing types like Marionberry are the gold standard. Blackberries fruit on second-year canes just like raspberries, but the crown underneath is perennial and can produce for 15 to 40 years. You will get a small baby crop in year 2 and full production by year 3. That is faster than almost any other perennial fruit you can plant. Here is the easiest way to tell blackberries and raspberries apart. Pull a ripe raspberry off the plant and the white core stays behind. The berry is hollow. With a blackberry, the core comes with the fruit. That is why blackberries are firmer and denser, and it is the foolproof test if you are ever unsure which one you are looking at. One more thing worth mentioning. If you want blackberries that fruit on first-year canes, like ever-bearing raspberries do, the Primark series now makes that possible. Primark Freedom is the first thornless primo cane fruiting blackberry, and it is a legitimate option for zones 5 through 9. You will not get quite the yields of a mature Triple Crown, but the convenience of mowing everything down in fall and still getting fruit the next year is pretty hard to beat. Number 9. Goji Berries. Goji berries are the speed demons of the perennial berry world. You can get fruit in year 1 or 2 from named cultivars like Crimson Star and Phoenix Tears. That is faster than anything else on this list, but, and this is a big but, the productive lifespan is only about 8 years, peaking around year 5, so you get quick returns but short-lived plants. They grow in zones 4 through 7, and here is something that surprises people. Goji berries are in the tomato family, same family as peppers, potatoes, and eggplant. They even get blossom end rot from inconsistent watering, just like your tomatoes do. Mature plants yield about 2 to 6 pounds each. Now, the warning. Goji berries spread aggressively through root suckers and bird-dispersed seeds. They are actually listed as a noxious weed in Montana and Wyoming. Multiple gardeners online describe needing herbicide just to remove established plants. If you grow them, use root barriers or containers. Seriously. And about that superfood marketing you see everywhere, the FDA actually stepped in and stopped 2 companies from promoting goji berries as a cancer cure. The proven nutritional standout is zeaxanthin content, which is genuinely good for eye health. But dried goji berries are almost half sugar by weight. Your homegrown blueberries and black currants provide similar overall nutrition at a fraction of the cost and drama. Number 8. Currants. The story of currants in America is honestly one of the wild things in horticultural history. In 1911, the federal government banned the cultivation of all currants across the entire country. The reason? A fungal disease called white pine blister rust needed both pine trees and currant plants to complete its life cycle, and the timber industry was worth more than a berry bush. That ban lasted over half a century, and the result is that today, less than 0.1% of Americans have ever tasted a black currant. Meanwhile, over 99% of the entire global crop grows in Europe. Red currants like Red Lake and Ravada are bright, tart, and loaded with natural pectin, which makes them perfect for jelly. Black currants like Titania and Ben Sarek have a bold, complex, almost resinous flavor that people either love or are confused by. There is no middle ground with black currants. Both types grow best in zones 3 through 5, but adapt all the way to zone 8. Yields reach 3 to 10 pounds per mature bush, and they are one of the rare fruits that actually produce well in partial shade. Productive lifespan runs 12 to 20 years. Now, some state restrictions still exist. North Carolina bans all currant species statewide. Maine prohibits European black currants specifically. Always check your local regulations before ordering. And here is the fact that stops people cold every time. Purple Skittles are grape-flavored in the United States, but blackcurrant flavored in the United Kingdom, Europe, and Australia. That flavor difference is a direct cultural consequence of the nearly century-long American ban on growing these plants. Number 7. Gooseberries. Gooseberries share the same genus as currants, endured the same federal ban, and remain just as underappreciated in America, which is a shame because a well-maintained mature gooseberry bush yields 8 to 10 pounds of fruit according to Utah State University Extension. You have two main types. American gooseberries are hardier and more disease-resistant. European types produce larger, sweeter fruit that is good enough to eat fresh right off the bush. Both grow in zones 3 through 8. Top picks include Hinnanmaki Red, which is a Finnish variety with excellent mildew resistance, and Captivator, which is semi-thornless and makes harvesting way less painful. First meaningful harvest arrives around year 2 or 3 with full production at years 4 through 5. The productive lifespan stretches 12 to 20 years. If you are finding this helpful, hit subscribe. I cover gardening deep dives like this every week. Now, back to gooseberries. Culinary uses range from the classic English gooseberry fool, which is stewed berries folded into whipped cream, to pies, chutneys, and wine. Green underripe berries are tart with high pectin, perfect for cooking. Fully ripe dessert varieties can rival grapes for sweetness. And in the UK, competitive gooseberry growing is a legitimate organized sport dating back to the 1800s. Annual shows feature growers competing to produce the single largest berry, and champion specimens have exceeded 2 ounces. That subculture never developed in America for the simple reason that the plants were literally illegal here for most of the 20th century. Number 6. Honeyberries. Also called Haskap, and this might be the most underrated berry on the entire list. Honeyberries are an edible honeysuckle, not related to blueberries at all despite looking similar, and they are the ultimate cold climate fruit. Hardy to zone 1, surviving minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit, with flowers tough enough to handle temperatures down to 19 degrees. They ripen before strawberries, often in early June, making them the very first berry of the season. The University of Saskatchewan's breeding program, led by Dr. Bob Boers starting in 2002, is what transformed Haskap from a wild boreal curiosity into a real garden crop. Top varieties include Aurora, which was selected from over 10,000 seedlings, and Borealis, which won Best Tasting in their 2007 trials. Newer releases like Boreal Blizzard produce berries 2 to 3 times heavier than earlier varieties. But here is the critical thing you absolutely need to know. Honeyberries are completely self-incompatible. You must plant at least 2 compatible varieties that bloom at the same time, or you will harvest exactly 0 berries, not reduced harvest. 0. Check the University of Saskatchewan compatibility charts before you buy anything. The taste is commonly described as a blueberry-raspberry combination with currant undertones. Mature plants yield 5 to 10 pounds with a remarkable 30-year productive lifespan. And unlike blueberries, they tolerate a soil pH range from 5.0 all the way up to 7.7, which makes them way more flexible for the average garden. The name Haskap comes from the indigenous Ainu people of Japan and roughly translates to berry of long life and good vision. Number 5. Elderberries. Elderberry syrup has become a full-blown cottage industry, and the plants behind it are remarkably productive. But there is a safety rule you absolutely cannot skip. Raw elderberries contain cyanogenic glycosides and must always be cooked before eating. All other parts of the plant, the stems, leaves, roots, bark, and unripe green berries, are straight-up toxic. American elderberry grows in zones 3 through 9, reaching 6 to 12 feet tall. The top variety for production is York, which produces the largest berries and heaviest clusters. Bob Gordon is another standout, with individual flower clusters that can weigh up to 2 pounds. You need at least 2 different cultivars planted within 60 feet of each other for cross-pollination. Small crops appear in year 2, with full production by years 3 through 5. A well-managed mature bush pumps out 8 to 15 pounds per year in favorable eastern and midwestern conditions. And the root crown can remain productive for up to 60 years with renewal pruning, which just means cutting out all the canes that are 3 years old or older every season. Uses go way beyond syrup. Elderberry wine, pies, jelly, and elderflower cordials and fritters are all traditional preparations. Hippocrates reportedly called the elder tree his medicine chest around 400 BCE. And here is a fun detail. The genus name Sambucus may come from the Greek word sambuca, an ancient wind instrument, because hollowed elderberry stems have been used to make flutes for centuries. Number 4. Blueberries, the most popular home garden berry in America, and for good reason. But I put them at number 4 instead of number 1 because there is one make-or-break requirement that trips up more gardeners than any other factor with any other plant on this list. Soil pH. Blueberries demand a soil pH between 4.5 and 5.5. That is seriously acidic. Penn State Extension says flat out that if your native soil pH is above 6.2, blueberry production is simply not recommended without major amendment. You need to apply sulfur 3 to 6 months before planting just to get the soil ready. This is non-negotiable, and the reason is fascinating. Blueberry plants have literally 0 root hairs. None. They are completely dependent on a symbiotic partnership with ericoid mycorrhizal fungi to absorb nutrients, and that partnership only functions in acidic conditions. Without the fungi, the roots cannot take up phosphorus or nitrogen at all. Nursery plants often arrive without these fungi colonized, which is one reason new transplants struggle for the first year or two. If you get the pH right, though, northern high-bush varieties like Blue Crop and Duke produce 5 to 10 pounds per bush in zones 4 through 7. Rabbit eye types like Tiff Blue and Powder Blue absolutely crush it with 12 to 25 pounds per bush in zones 7 through 9. Half-high varieties bred at the University of Minnesota push hardiness all the way down to zone 3. You will remove all flower buds in years 1 and 2 to let the roots establish. Small harvests start around year 3, with full production at years 5 through 7. And the lifespan? Oregon State Extension confirms blueberry bushes bearing fruit for over 50 years. Plant 3 or 4 bushes in your 30s and they will still be feeding you in your 80s. Quick variety guide. Blue Crop is the industry standard, the Toyota Camry of blueberries, mid-season, reliable, zones 4 through 7. Duke is the early bird, consistently the first to ripen. Patriot handles cold down to zone 3. And if you are in a warm climate, Sunshine Blue is compact, partially self-fertile, and works beautifully in containers on a patio. Always plant at least 2 different varieties for cross-pollination. You will get noticeably bigger berries and heavier yields compared to a single variety planted alone. Number 3. Lingonberries. Okay, this one is a sleeper pick. Only 71 acres on the entire planet are in commercial lingonberry cultivation. That is it. The vast majority of lingonberries consumed worldwide are still wild harvested from boreal forests across Scandinavia, Russia, and Canada. These are low-growing evergreen shrubs in the same family as blueberries, and they need the same acidic soil, pH 4.3 to 5.5. Cultivated varieties grow just 6 to 16 inches tall in zones 2 through 7. Cornell, a Dutch-German cultivar, dominates commercial plantings. Individual plants yield about half a pound to a pound and a quarter. That sounds small, but here is why lingonberries make the top 3. The Scandinavian connection runs incredibly deep. Lingonberry jam is the essential condiment next to Swedish meatballs. IKEA serves it in every single restaurant worldwide. Europeans wild harvest roughly 80 million pounds every year. In Finland, they call them puolukka, and they eat them daily in yogurt, sauces, and preserves. The berries naturally contain benzoic acid, which acts as a preservative. That gives them a refrigerated shelf life of 6 to 8 weeks and frozen storage of up to 2 years without any processing. Try that with a strawberry. Growing them outside Scandinavia is a genuine challenge. They demand very specific, acidic, well-drained soil. They struggle in heat above Zone 7, and they establish slowly. Full commercial production takes 5 to 8 years. But for northern gardeners willing to replicate those boreal conditions, Lingonberries are a seriously rewarding crop that almost nobody in your neighborhood is growing. Number 2. Mulberries. No fruit tree on earth matches the mulberry for sheer volume combined with lifespan. A mature mulberry tree can produce 60 to 100 gallons of fruit per year, and some black mulberry specimens have been documented at several hundred years old. Red mulberry, the native North American species, reaches peak production between ages 30 and 85 and can live over 125 years. 3 species matter for home gardeners. White mulberry was imported from China all the way back in 1621 for the American silk industry. That industry completely failed, but the trees stayed and eventually became invasive. Red mulberry is native and grows in zones 5 through 9. Black mulberry produces the best tasting fruit, but is the least cold hardy. For most home gardens, Illinois everbearing, a red-white hybrid that is hardy to -20 degrees Fahrenheit, is the go-to pick. Grafted trees can start fruiting in just 2 to 3 years, but fair warning, the messiness factor is very real. Dark mulberry fruit stains sidewalks, driveways, cars, patios, and anything else underneath the canopy. The roots are shallow and aggressive enough to crack foundations. Male trees produce enormous clouds of allergenic pollen. Multiple cities, including El Paso, Las Vegas, Tucson, and Phoenix, have actually banned mulberry trees outright. And this is my favorite plant fact in this entire video. White mulberry pollen launches at over 350 miles per hour. That is more than half the speed of sound. It uses a catapult mechanism that makes it one of the single fastest movements in the entire plant kingdom. Traditionally, mulberry trees were planted right next to pig pens and chicken runs because one mature tree produces enough free fruit to feed livestock for an entire month. If you have the space and can handle the mess, nothing else even comes close to this kind of output. Number 1. Serviceberries. This might surprise you because serviceberries are not exactly a household name, but they are, hands down, the most underplanted edible fruit in American landscaping, and once you understand why, you will see them differently forever. Serviceberries deliver 4-season ornamental beauty, clouds of white flowers in spring, blue-purple berries in summer, brilliant red and orange fall foliage, and smooth silver-gray bark in winter. You have probably walked past them in parking lots and parks 100 times and had absolutely no idea the fruit is edible. And not just edible, delicious. The flavor is commonly described as blueberry with almond or marzipan notes. That almond taste comes from the edible seeds you eat along with the fruit. The primary fruiting species is Saskatoon berry, hardy all the way down to Zone 2, surviving temperatures to -60 degrees Fahrenheit. Top fruiting varieties include Thiessen for highest yield, Northline for best flavor according to Montana State taste tests, and Regent for compact 6-foot plants that work in smaller landscapes. Yields reach up to 10 pounds per plant for high-producing cultivars, and large mature trees can push 30 to 40 pounds. First fruit shows up at years 2 to 3, with full production by year 8, and a productive lifespan that stretches well over 20 years. The soil pH tolerance of 5.5 to 7.0 and even up to 8.0 makes them way more flexible than blueberries. And they are jug-loan tolerant, which means they are one of the very few fruit plants that can actually grow near black walnut trees. Over 35 bird species feed on serviceberries, so plan to net your plants if you want fruit for yourself. But that dual-purpose appeal is exactly what makes them number 1. Specimen trees, hedgerows, food forests, erosion control, formal landscapes. Serviceberries fit everywhere. And here is the final brain twister. Serviceberries are not berries at all. Botanically, they are tiny apples. They are pomes in the Rosaceae family, more closely related to your apple tree than to any blueberry bush. The almond flavor in the fruit comes from the edible seeds that you eat along with the flesh. Indigenous peoples across North America relied heavily on serviceberries for centuries. They were a key ingredient in pemmican, the original energy bar, mixed with dried meat and fat. In Canada, Saskatoon berries remain a mainstream crop. The city of Saskatoon, Saskatchewan literally took its name from the CREE word for this fruit. So, there are your 12 berry plants. If you want maximum lifetime yield with minimal replanting, go with blueberries, elderberries, or mulberries. Those are true plant-once investments. For the fastest returns, blackberries and goji berries produce in just 2 years. For the coldest climates, honeyberries and lingonberries thrive where nothing else survives. And for the best all-around landscaping value, serviceberries are almost impossible to beat. The single insight that cuts across every plant on this list? Variety selection matters more than almost anything else. A blueberry grower in Zone 8 needs a rabbit eye, not a northern highbush. A blackberry grower who hates thorns has a dozen thornless options. A Haskap grower without a compatible pollinator will harvest nothing. Match the right cultivar to your zone and soil, and these plants will feed you for the rest of your life. Subscribe and hit the bell so you do not miss next week's video. And if you want to go deeper on any of these 12 plants, that video is on screen right now.